project I've been working on over the last year. And I'm discussing how I went about doing pixel art UI in Godot and specifically also like responsive UI, so how to make it adapt to the screen, which is quite handy also if you're making like mobile games or stuff like that. So I really like game UI. I think it kind of gives a game a whole like vibe. And this is one of my favorite UIs. It's from Gran Turismo 4. Has anyone played it here? Yeah, I think it has a great UI. It's like I don't know. I play Gran Turismo because it's like it's not just like a racing simulator. It's more like a car lovers game, and I think the UI goes. I mean, it helps a lot to build this kind of vibe to it. Yeah, and yeah. So I've done for random reasons. I've done a lot of basically the almost every game I made in Godot only uses control nodes. It's only like UI based. So the one on the left is you play as like a government employee, so you need to like stamp and sign different files. And then I also made a plugin for a multiplayer company, and yeah, that's also of course mostly UI. So I had all these, I learned all these things about UI, and I was like, but I wanted to like publish a game on Steam, and I was like, what should I make my game about? And well, I'm from Sicily, and I don't know if you're aware, but like the Roman Church is like a big thing in Sicily, uh, and so yeah, I was like, yeah, maybe I should make I don't think anyone has made a game about the Roman Church, and I was like, maybe I could make one, and yeah, there's like it's I don't know, as a child it was always boring, going to church, but then I discovered there's all this like politics involved. This is like global organization, and there's like backstabbing, and like I don't know, it's surprisingly interesting, I think. So I asked myself two questions. The first one was, what if the church had its own operating system? And the second one was, what is it like to be the Pope's secretary? Because yeah, there's been like a few scandals where like the butler of the Pope would like steal documents from the desk and then send them to journalists. So I felt like might be interesting to make a game about it. So introducing HolyOS, which is the operating system of a game called In Good Faith, and this is how it looks like. So there's a few applications you can use. There's like a kind of like a Twitter app inside of it with all your internal news, and there's also this like internal database to access all the like secret files, and like a chat system so you can talk to the cardinals. Yeah, and of course the all of the UI is responsive. So just like in there's many like fake operating system games. I think what sets this one apart a bit is that it really feels like an OS. Like you can play it on any screen, like even an ultra wide, and it will adapt. And same for the windows, like you can resize them however you like, and they will adapt. So it really feels like a normal operating system, and it uses all the these are Godot windows. These are all built-in UI. Like I didn't make any custom nodes. And yeah, so Godot is like, if you're making like a fake operating system game, like Godot is like surprisingly good at it. So yeah, so this is what I'm gonna discuss today. So setting up a custom theme for your game, how to make like a practical example how I made the email client responsive, how to theme a button, how to add the sound effects, customizing the mouse cursor, and doing drag and drop. So it's quite a few things. So I'm gonna go a bit fast. Okay, so let's start from the custom theme. So that's the first thing you want to do. You create it as a resource. It's just like a normal Godot resource in your project. And then what I recommend doing is you go to the project settings under the theme section. You set like a default custom theme, and it will get applied to all of your UI by default. Otherwise, you need to every scene you create, you need to manually set it. And you can also set a custom font over there. However, when you set a custom font, what you will notice sometimes, like these pixel art fonts, especially, like they have sometimes they have an offset. Like you see, like it should be in the middle of that's like a calculator I was making. It should be centered. However, there's a bit of like a vertical offset. You can fix it globally by creating a font variation. So yeah, because otherwise it's whenever you create UI components, you're always gonna have to like put a margin container or something. But the easiest way to fix it is you edit your theme resource. There's a property called the default font. So you go and you edit that property, you create a font variation. And when you do that, you can pick a base font. So that's the font I want to use. In this case, it's called Silver. And then I customize the baseline. And you see, throughout my global UI for my entire project, the font now will be centered. So yeah. So now that we set up our custom theme, we can we can create like a bit of UI. So let's look at how I made the email client. This is how the email client in the game looks like. And the way you make responsive UI in Godot is basically by nesting different containers. So you see on the left, first we have a split container. So that kind of splits the content in two halves. And then I have a grabber in the middle to adjust it. Then inside of it, a VBox container to put stuff on top of each other. Then a margin container. Then an HBox container, and so on and so forth. That's just how you make responsive UI in Godot. So these containers, they just help you arrange your content dynamically based on whatever size the parent is. Again, just more and more containers inside of containers inside of containers. And this is how it looks like in the end. You can just resize it and it will adapt just like a real email client. So going to theming, let's make a button. Let's style a button. Okay, so we have our theme resource, or actually, okay, let's start from the beginning. So we already have a default style for the buttons, but we want to make an alternate style. So just like in macOS, some buttons have a different color. We want to do the same here, right? So we need to create a variation of a button essentially. So here's how you do it. So you start from I start from a sprite. All of my UI is drawn into a single Atlas texture on a sprite. And you see I made a new button with a normal state and a pressed state at the bottom. Then I go to my theme resource, which we created earlier, and we say it as a default. And I create a new type and I call it button alternate. Because this is a custom type, and you also need to specify that there is a base type, and that's our button, because that's what we're trying to style. And now I go to my button and I say this should have type variation button alternate. So now, and the style I set will be applied to this button. So now I can go and I can customize the styling, and I set the style box texture. I go to my texture property. It's an Atlas texture because again, it's all of the textures are in one Atlas. I just need to specify the region for where the texture is located. So there it is. Godot has a really nice, it just lets you click on it and then it automatically does the thing. The only thing you need to do is you need to specify the margins. And as you can see on the left, the button is taking shape, and that's pretty much it. So it's a bit tedious, but you get the habit eventually, and it becomes quite fast. So that's how you make a Pixar button. Adding sounds, I think sounds is like it's actually one of the most important parts of UI in Godot, or in general in games. And the way I go about it is I use inheritance, I guess, and I create a custom node called, in this case, I call it button sounds. And I just add it as a child of whatever button I want to add the sound. And it has two properties. It has a pressed stream, so that's the sound that will play when the button is pressed. And a visibility change stream, like when the button is shown or hidden. And this is how the code looks like. It's actually like quite simple, but basically all it does is it checks whether the parent is a button, and if it is, it just connects to it, and when I press it, it plays the sounds. So, pretty straightforward, but it works. Then I want to talk about custom cursors. So that's another important part of if you're making a custom OS, but also if you're making like an RPG game, like you want to have like a nice custom cursor. And there's two ways to do it in Godot. The first one is you directly style the OS cursor. So that's the kind of the built-in way, the recommended way. And Godot has a nice function, set custom mouse cursor, and you just specify which shape of the cursor you're customizing. So is it the arrow or is it the loading shape? And then you specify the texture that you want for it. However, in HolyOS, this is a bit of a problem because you cannot see it here, but actually I use a CRT shader and the cursor is on top of the shader, so it doesn't get affected. So I had to do it in another way. So the second way is you hide the native cursor and then you have a node to the follow the hidden cursor. Now, these are some drawbacks. You have at least 1 frame of delay. You need to write your own implementation, or you need to use a plugin. And in this case, I use Awesome Custom Cursor 1.0. And this is how it looks like. So it's like minor difference, but yeah. So it's here again, I'm really quite impressed with how easy it was to implement this, because all this plugin wants is just a sprite frames resource with different animations named after the cursor states, essentially. So as you can see, we have an arrow animation, a PZ animation, drag, and so on. And this is like super easy to make in a sprite. I just need to tag so all the cursor are into one file, just on different frames, and then I just define different tags for each frame. So I can show you. So this is the arrow frame, then the vertical resizer, and so on and so forth. As long as they are tagged correctly, like it's gonna work. Then I use ASprite Wizard to automatically import my ASprite file and convert it into a sprite frames resource. And that's how it looks like. So again, surprisingly easy. I'm quite happy with how Godot and the plugin especially handles this. Okay, I think this is the last topic, is drag and drop in Godot. So I have a reporting tool in the game where, because you're supposed to be able to send files to the Pope. So yeah, you just drag and drop them, and then you can send them. So how do you do drag and drop in Godot? There's a few virtual functions that get called. So let's start. Let's say there are different slots. Some slots accept a texture that you can drop on it, and some slots accept a color. I just speed it up, So when the user starts dragging the Godot icon, we have a Godot icon.gt script, and we are overriding the getDragData function. And inside of this virtual function, we can return the data that we are actually dragging. So we can define it. And we are also setting a drag preview, which in this case is just the texture with a bit of transparency. So when the user starts dragging, this is how it looks like. Now, the user wants to drop it into the first slot. However, by using the canDropData function, we say, we basically specify we are only accepting a drop if the data is of type color, for example. So in this case, the drop is not allowed, and Godot shows the correct cursor, which is the drop forbidden cursor. Then we go to this other slot, and here instead we say, okay, we can accept a texture 2D. Great. So the cursor shows that we can drop, and we have the third and last virtual function, which is the drop data function, and it has data as the argument that we defined earlier, and we can do whatever we want with it. So in this case, we just create a texturate and we add it as a child. So yeah, super easy. However, there is a limitation here. So as you can see, when I'm dragging, the preview is hidden behind the window. So this is a known limitation from, I think, 2022. And it will require, from what I read on GitHub, a complete rewrite of the system. So I don't think it's going to get fixed soon. The only workaround is that you implement your own drag and drop system, but I'm not there yet. So what is it like to do UI in Godot? I think it's amazing. Like it's a really good experience. It's super feature rich. it's not I would say the editor, especially the theme editor, is not self-explanatory. So I had to do like really a lot of just playing with the inspector, changing random values and just seeing what happens. And that's how I learned how to do it. Yeah. Also, there's no data bindings in Godot. I know I've never used them, but I know it's like pretty helpful when you do UI. I think other game engines support it, but not in Godot. I wish you could, for example, like combine different styles. So define more than one type variation and kind of Godot just kind of merges everything together, like in modern web frameworks. But just that's not available at this moment. And yeah, I have a personal grievance with like the tree node. It's like really hard to theme and just very cumbersome to use. So I only use it like in one place in the HolyOS, which is the file explorer. So yeah, if you can, my suggestion is to avoid. But yeah, that's all for my talk. I guess there is time for questions, and yeah, thank you very much.
Quick question. So I see in the top left of your UI examples just there's sort of a slanted element. Do you have like non-rectangular geometry in your UI? Or is that just like the sprite looks like that?
So that's just like I just drew that in a sprite.
Sure.
And then yeah, you can define when you define the margins for the texture, you can have kind of Godot ignore that part, let's say, and does that answer your question?
I was just wondering if you had any experience doing like non-rectangular stuff in like a way that would get laid out correctly. It sounds like maybe not so much.
No, at all. Yes.
So for the problem with the sprite that you're dragging hiding behind, can you not just like edit the Z layer of the visibility to actually over? Well, at least I know you tried.
I tried also there is a flag to have it on top or something.
That doesn't work either.
Doesn't work either, yeah. So.
Have you ever heard of HolyOS?
So yes. All right. Is that curious thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned on drag and drop again, like making your own system, and I've been working with it a bit, and I think maybe it is actually worth making your own because like a lot of the built-in, like the limitation of it only working with controls is a factor. If you have any dynamic, like I have like Balatro style cards that I'm drawing elements on them dynamically, and then when I want to drag, the drawn elements don't like get generated in the preview. Like I saw you did duplicate also, and that will call any type of like callback functions as well, which can be a big hassle. Yeah, I'm really struggling with whether it's because I've implemented moving chips as nodes and did my own drag and drop with like collision boxes and stuff, and I feel like at the end of the day that might have actually been better for my purposes than trying to use the built-in drag and drop.
I think I went through the same thing where I was working on another game, and especially when using Node 2Ds, yeah, you need to implement your own system basically. And for me, I ended up, sticking with like just control nodes, just because the responsive.
Yeah,
UI,
you got a lot for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can really see there is a case for implementing your own system, and yeah, I can totally see that. Yeah. Yes.
Have you made any like non-pixel UI, and like is there any like weird differences in between making both that would be good to keep in mind?
Well, actually, I haven't. So I don't know. I mean, I actually did one game jam, but the workflow for me was exactly the same. Like I didn't even notice the difference.
Were you just making like not pixel style textures?
Yeah. So they were higher resolution, but it worked exactly the same. So there was another question here.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, I was just curious because you mentioned the drag and drop thing as one limitation. Are there any other limitations that you found where you wish the system was implemented differently, or things that like with your experience, you're like, oh, this is how I would do it if I had full control over how this system was designed?
I'm thinking, like for me, it just works. So actually I wouldn't change it as much. Yeah, but apart from the drag preview, yeah, off the top of my mind, I can't think of it. I think it's also because I'm nervous, but maybe later I come back to you and I'll tell you. Yes?
Have you used other game dev platforms, and can you compare how UI development in Godot is compared with like Unity or Unreal or anything?
I've used Construct, and I know someone even made actually a quite popular fake operating system in Construct, and I like Construct a lot. I think it's a bit underrated as a game engine. For UI, I wouldn't recommend it. Godot is definitely like 100 times better, I think, in that regard. But yeah, so I cannot compare with Unity or Unreal.
Yes. Back to pixel art UI. You mentioned that everything's very adaptive, including to different resolutions, ultra wide, etc. Are you maintaining pixel perfectness across all of this, or are you using a shader to kind of straighten things out, or how are you?
Yeah, so I think so supposedly, yes. I did notice there are some imperfections with some textures, and then the shader kind of like smoothens everything. And yeah, but I believe that you should be able to maintain this pixel perfect style even when you have a responsive design.
And what about like, I don't know, the easy option is like use a consistent 16:9 small native resolution that is multiple layouts. But that's obviously not the art for ultra wide.
Yeah. So, but with ultra wide, you're able to.
Yeah, this works. And yeah, again, I think it was, if there were maybe some minor imperfections, but like barely noticeable. Like I went through the process. Now I don't remember exactly what I did or how I set up the project, like the stretch settings and whatever, but I don't think that's a big issue. I should be able to do it easily. Yeah.
Well, yes. Did you try implementing any of your HolyOS stuff on touch screens? And if so, like,
Was there any? What was your experience in doing sort of touch UI?
I haven't with HolyOS. I worked on another game that was on mobile. The one I showed you earlier, where you're into stamp and sign things. It worked, like, I think, perfectly well on mobile. The only trouble I had was with the... I know, it just made me confused, I guess, just the input detection, like, what's the difference between a click and a tap, or a swipe and a mouse? I don't know. I had to like play around with it a bit. That was the only main point, but yeah. Yes?
Kind of an extension off that question. Was debugging the differences between clicking and tapping like easy? Like, could you make it tell you the difference? Or?
Yeah, so because when you're doing the input detection, like, I think at some point I was just doing, I was just checking for essentially like taps or swipes or whatever, and then, or maybe no, mouse clicks, and it was working like locally on my computer, and then I deployed the game on the web, and yeah, from my phone it wasn't working, and I only discovered like when I was doing like a playtest. That was quite annoying. Yeah, that was was that your question, or?
Yeah, I guess like the feedback on engine, like how easy was that to work through?
I think it was quite easy. Like, again, apart from this minor issue, it was perfect. Yeah. Yes.
Have you looked through the accessibility focus sort of stuff for the new screen reader support that's in 4.5 div?
So I think I was a bit expecting this question. No, I haven't, but I think it's I want to do that at some point for sure. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
How do you do state management? Like, does each component have its own state, or is it centralized?
So each component has its own state, and then I think I don't even have any auto loads in the project at all. Maybe I just have one for the cursor, and that's it.
So when you're saving and loading, do you just go through each component and save that?
So I haven't implemented saving and loading yet. Yeah, I don't know how we'll go about that. Maybe actually we could talk about it at some point. But yeah, for the only one that is maybe a different solution I'm using for the NPCs is that I have a whole like a scene for the NPCs, and the state is all managed in one place, let's say, for that. But yeah, I don't know how to do save and load yet. Yeah.
I don't know if you needed to do it for this project, but with drag and drop, have you found a way to do any kind of animations while it's dragging, like maybe it wobbles or something?
Yes, and you reminded me actually of one pain point with drag and drop. So coming to your question, so I use twins. So there is, maybe you weren't able to see it, but there is a bit of like a pop-up animation when you start dragging. For that, I just use Godot twins, and it works. The thing I haven't been able to do is I want to animate also. Wait, let me just go. Yeah.
Like,
So-
well, you're right here.
Yeah. So there is a little bit of animation, but I struggle to animate. Like I would like the empty slot to like light up to show that the drag is available, and I'm not able to do that.
Oh, you might be able to do that from the can drop function.
Yes, I tried, but then I don't know. I don't know how to revert it back to the original state when the user is not trying to drag anymore. No? So that's the maybe there is a way, but at least it was very, maybe I found a way at some point, but it was like super like cumbersome. So I didn't implement it. Yep. Yes.
Somewhat related to the animation. Do you have any guidelines for? I saw your A sprite. Any guidelines for when you do custom animation, like a sprite sheet, or actually make it in A sprite versus doing like tweens or doing rotation in scripting?
So I'm 100% try to use twins as much as possible. It's just the easiest way to do it. Yeah, I mean, I think the only animation I made in Sprite was the busy cursor with the hourglass. That's about it. Yeah. Anyway, any more questions? Yes.
I saw some deeply nested scenes with like a lot of containers upon containers. Do you have any tips or tricks on working with deeply and like nested hierarchies? Because when I've worked with them in the past, I have to spend a lot of mental effort just knowing where I am.
Yeah, I don't have to say that. Yeah, I mean, I think also here is something that can be improved in the editor is when you go on your remote and you look for maybe for a node, the search experience is a bit strange. Like you will find a specific node, but maybe I want to look, okay, what is its parent? And I don't know, I find, the whole navigation for the remote a bit strange. Yeah, there's, it's just a bit cumbersome at the moment, yeah.
Follow up on that, did you consider making some of those nested groups into their own scenes and having scenes inside scenes, which might reduce some complexity when you're looking at it and trying to find something?
Yes, and that's something I used to do on an older project a lot. But then I found it actually adds some complexity because maybe sometimes I want to change the layout, and then it's complicated to edit that, or I don't remember what problems I was encountering, but I think I went through a phase where I was doing it like that, and then for some reason I stopped. I don't remember exactly why, I'm sorry, but...
That's a great answer, actually.
Yeah.
You don't know, it's like, but
Yeah.
you went back, right?
Yeah, I went back, yeah. Yes?
So for the thing you were saying earlier about if you use can drop data to like trigger some animation, I think you can use mouse exited events on containers. It's a little jank. It's like not for everything. You mentioned there's like a 1 frame delay if you have your own custom cursor. Do you know if the drag preview also has a 1 frame delay? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I've experienced, I was using the built-in cursor, not a custom cursor, and drag preview felt a little jank, and I'm wondering if there's like a weird delay between the two. But
it shouldn't, I think. It shouldn't have any delay. To be honest, I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks.
Any more questions? That's all? Well, thank you very much for the very nice questions.